The jungle was loud at night, not because of animals, not because of the wind, but because Jim Jones never allowed silence. Speakers hung from poles above the muddy roads of Jonestown, blasting his voice through the darkness 24 hours a day. Even while people slept, his sermons echoed through the jungle like warnings from a god that never rested. Residents would wake in sweat-soaked beds to the sound of Jones ranting about enemies, traitors, fascists, and death. Always death. By November of 1978, the people trapped inside Jonestown had heard that voice so long they could no longer separate fear from reality. And that was exactly how Jim Jones wanted it. At first, he didn't look dangerous. That's what made him different from every movie version people imagine today. He wasn't some screaming villain from the beginning. He looked like hope. During the Civil Rights era, Jim Jones built an image unlike almost any white preacher in America. He integrated his church when segregation still poisoned much of the country. He adopted children of different races. He preached about equality, socialism, helping the poor, feeding the hungry. In a divided America, he appeared revolutionary. And thousands believed him. Poor families believed him. Black families believed him. Lonely people believed him. People desperate for meaning believed him. What they didn't realize was that Jim Jones had been rehearsing for control his entire life. He was born in rural Indiana during the Great Depression, raised in poverty, isolated from other children, obsessed with religion and death almost from the beginning. Neighbors later described him as strange and deeply unsettling even as a child. He held funerals for dead animals, forced neighborhood kids to attend fake church services. Sometimes he would scream sermons at children while pretending to perform miracles. Even then, he understood something terrifying about human beings. If you speak with enough certainty, people will follow you, especially if they're hurting, especially if they need hope. By the 1950s, Jones began building what became the People's Temple. Publicly, it looked beautiful. The church provided food drives, housing assistance, nursing care, addiction recovery, and support for struggling families. Members described Jones as compassionate and magnetic. Politicians loved him, communities praised him, but hidden beneath the kindness was something darker growing quietly behind the scenes. Control. Jones needed complete loyalty, and loyalty was easiest to create through fear. At church services, he began performing miracles. People in wheelchairs suddenly stood. Blind worshipers claimed they could see. Cancer patients said tumors vanished after Jones touched them. Crowds erupted into tears. People believed they were witnessing divine power. But former members later exposed many of the healings as staged performances. Fake tumors were hidden in chicken livers. Planted church members pretended to recover from illnesses. Entire scenes had been rehearsed beforehand, like theater. But once people believed Jim Jones could perform miracles, they stopped questioning everything else. That was the real miracle. Not healing. Control. As the People's Temple exploded in popularity during the 1970s, Jones gained political influence in San Francisco. Powerful officials attended his events. He could fill auditoriums with cheering followers. He preached socialism mixed with religion, racial equality mixed with apocalyptic paranoia. But privately, the church was becoming something else entirely. Members accused of disloyalty were beaten, humiliated publicly, forced to confess sins in front of crowds. Children were abused. Families were manipulated into spying on each other. Jones recorded private confessions so he could blackmail members if they tried leaving. And slowly, he convinced followers the outside world was evil. America was collapsing, he claimed. The government was coming for them. Concentration camps were being prepared. Fascists would soon torture anyone who opposed the system. Only one place would be safe. A promised land hidden deep inside the jungles of Guyana. Jonestown. The brochures made it look like paradise. Happy workers smiling beside crops. Children laughing. Families united in equality. But the reality waiting in the jungle was something far more horrifying. When members arrived in Guyana, many realized almost immediately they had made a terrible mistake. Their passports were confiscated. Armed guards patrolled the grounds. Escape became nearly impossible. Residents worked exhausting hours in brutal tropical heat, clearing fields and building structures while suffering from hunger, exhaustion, and disease. Food was limited, medical care was poor, punishments were severe, and everywhere, always, there was Jim Jones's voice pouring from loudspeakers day and night. Sleep became difficult. Privacy disappeared completely. People who criticized Jones vanished into punishment sessions. Children were taught to report parents who expressed doubt. Nobody trusted anyone anymore. The jungle itself became part of the prison. Dense rainforest surrounded the compound for miles in every direction. There was nowhere to run. Then came the White Nights, late-night emergency drills where residents were ordered to gather immediately inside the pavilion while armed guards surrounded them. Jones would announce that enemies were approaching. Mercenaries, government agents, assassins.
Sometimes he passed around cups filled with liquid and told everyone they were about to die together in revolutionary protest.
Parents made their children drink first. People waited in silence for death. Only afterward would Jones reveal it had all been a loyalty test, a rehearsal, practice. The psychological damage from those nights was devastating. Over time, residents became conditioned to associate death with obedience. Fear became normal. Suicide became normalized. Jones was training them slowly for the final act. Outside Guyana, concerned relatives in America began hearing terrifying stories from defectors who escaped Jonestown. They described beatings, armed guards, forced labor, starvation, rehearsals for mass suicide, and psychological torture. Eventually, Congressman Leo Ryan decided to investigate personally. That decision would trigger the end of everything. On November 17, 1978, Ryan arrived in Guyana alongside journalists, lawyers, and concerned family members. At first, Jonestown performed happiness for the visitors. Music played. Children sang songs. Residents smiled nervously while Jones acted calm and welcoming. But beneath the smiles was panic. Journalists began receiving secret notes from residents begging for help. One note simply read, "Please help us get out of Jonestown." Others whispered desperately to Ryan's group. Terrified guards would overhear them. That night, tension spread across the compound like poison. Some residents decided they wanted to leave with Ryan. Jim Jones realized his control was collapsing. And paranoid dictators never surrender peacefully. The next afternoon, defectors prepared to leave Jonestown alongside Ryan's delegation. Trucks transported them toward the Port Kaituma airstrip where planes waited to take them away from Guyana. But before departure, a temple loyalist suddenly attacked Congressman Ryan with a knife. Ryan survived. Barely. Still, the group continued toward the runway. They never made it home. As passengers prepared to board the aircraft, a tractor pulling armed temple gunmen rolled toward the airstrip. Then the shooting started. Bullets tore through the crowd instantly. People screamed and dropped beneath the planes while gunfire ripped across the tarmac. NBC cameraman Bob Brown kept filming even after he was shot. His camera captured the chaos almost until the moment he died. Congressman Leo Ryan was murdered alongside 4 others. Several more were wounded. Some survivors escaped into nearby jungle brush and hid there through the night, listening to distant screams and gunfire echo across the darkness. Back at Jonestown, Jim Jones already knew what came next. That evening, residents were ordered into the pavilion for one final white night. Only this time, the poison was real. The FBI recording from that night still exists, and hearing it feels like listening to civilization collapse in real time.
Jones spoke calmly at first, insisting enemy forces would soon arrive to torture them all. He called death an act of revolutionary protest, a dignified end, a political statement.
But not everyone agreed.
One woman, Christine Miller, stood up trembling and pleaded for another solution. She begged people to choose life, another country, another chance.
For a brief moment, doubt spread through the crowd. You can hear it on the tape. Confusion, uncertainty. The machinery of death continued forward. Large tubs of grape flavor aid mixed with cyanide and sedatives were brought forward. Parents were instructed to bring children first. That may be the most horrifying detail of all. The children died first. Babies had poison squirted directly into their mouths with syringes while parents watched helplessly. The tape captures children crying and screaming in the background while adults panic around them. Some parents obeyed because they truly believed Jones. Others obeyed because armed guards surrounded the compound. Some survivors later described people trying to flee into the jungle before being forced back at gunpoint. Autopsies later revealed needle marks on many victims. Evidence strongly suggested many people did not die willingly. This was not simply mass suicide. For many, it was mass murder. One by one, bodies collapsed across the ground of Jonestown. Families died beside each other. Children died in their mother's arms. 918 people were dead by the end of the night. More than 300 were children. It became the largest single loss of American civilian life before September 11th. And near the center of the pavilion sat Jim Jones himself, dead from a gunshot wound to the head. To this day, investigators still debate whether Jones killed himself or someone else pulled the trigger. But in truth, it hardly matters, because his real weapon had never been the gun. It was psychological control. When authorities entered Jonestown afterward, they described scenes so disturbing many investigators never emotionally recovered. Bodies covered the compound in every direction beneath the crushing tropical heat. Entire families lay face down in the dirt. Insects buzzed across the dead, while recovery teams struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. Photographs from Jonestown remain among the most horrifying images in American history, not because of gore, but because they represent something deeply uncomfortable about human nature. Jim Jones did not begin as a monster to his followers. He began as hope. That is what makes Jonestown terrifying even today. Cults rarely begin with obvious evil. They begin with belonging, with promises, with community, with someone saying they understand your pain better than anyone else. Then the isolation begins, then the fear, then the obedience, then the surrender, until eventually, people can no longer tell where devotion ends and destruction begins. Even decades later, survivors still describe hearing Jim Jones's voice in nightmares. Some remember the loudspeakers. Some remember the screams of children screaming. Some remember stepping over bodies while escaping through the jungle darkness. Others remember the guilt of surviving when entire families died beside them. And many still ask the same question: how could this happen? The answer is terrifying because it means Jonestown was not an impossible tragedy. It was human, built slowly from manipulation, fear, charisma, isolation, and absolute power, the same ingredients that have existed throughout history, and still exist today. Because the most dangerous cult leaders never look dangerous in the beginning. They look like salvation. And by the time people realize the truth, it is often already too late.